NASA may have already sent humans to live on Mars, and they might be hiding the truth from us. For years, scientists have launched spacecraft after spacecraft, hoping to uncover the planet's biggest questions. Some missions were a success, but many ended in disaster, with lost signals, broken machines, and strange malfunctions. Could these failures be hiding something much bigger, something they don't want us to know? Tune in, because what we're about to reveal is the confirmation that life beyond Earth exists, and it's much more common than you thought. Back in the early 1960s, the Soviet Union was first in line to take a shot at Mars. They launched Mars 1960A and Mars 1960B, but both missions ended in disaster. Rockets didn't work, systems failed, and nothing made it to the planet. If this was a sign of things to come, Mars wasn't going to make things easy. Then came NASA, ready to get in the game with their Mariner program. Mariner 3 launched in 1964, but didn't even make it past Earth's orbit. Then, Mariner 4 took off and actually made it. It sent back 21 pictures of Mars in 1965, showing a place covered in craters and looking more like the Moon than the next Earth. Before we dive into this, one thing is certain. What happened next was far more shocking than anyone expected, and it raises questions NASA has never fully answered. By 1969, NASA was pushing harder, launching Mariners 6 and 7. These two flew by Mars and captured over 200 images, giving scientists a better look at what they were dealing with. Then in the early 70s, things started getting really serious. The Soviet Union launched Mars 2 and Mars 3 in 1971. Mars 2 crashed, and Mars 3 actually landed but stopped working almost immediately. That same year, NASA's Mariner 9 became the first spacecraft to orbit another planet. It mapped 70% of the Martian surface and found volcanoes and massive canyons, way more interesting than just craters. Then came the Viking missions in the mid-70s, which really took things up a notch. Viking 1 and Viking 2, each with an orbiter and a lander, launched in 1975. By 1976, both landers were on the ground, taking soil samples and looking for signs of life. The results? No clear answers, but plenty of data. Then came the 80s, and the Soviet Union wanted to check out Mars' moon, Phobos. They sent Phobos 1 and Phobos 2, but neither mission went as planned. One was lost on the way, and the other failed right before it was supposed to deploy landers. Fast forward to the 90s, and Mars exploration was back on track. NASA sent the Mars Observer in 1992, but guess what? It lost contact before even reaching Mars. Then came the Mars Global Surveyor in 1996, which actually worked, giving us detailed maps and data about the planet's magnetic field. That same year, NASA tried something new with the Mars Pathfinder mission. This one carried a small rover called Sojourner, which rolled around taking pictures and analyzing rocks. It proved that sending rovers was the way forward. Of course, there were still failures. The Mars Climate Orbiter, launched in 1998, was lost due to a ridiculous mistake. Someone forgot to convert measurements from imperial to metric. In 1999, the Mars Polar Lander disappeared during descent. But NASA didn't give up. In 2001, they sent the Mars Odyssey orbiter, which found evidence of water ice beneath the surface. Then in 2003, the European Space Agency joined the race with Mars Express. It had a lander called Beagle 2, which touched down but never sent back signals. It took more than a decade to confirm that it had actually landed but didn't fully deploy. That same year, NASA launched the Spirit and Opportunity rovers, both meant to last 90 days. Spirit lasted until 2010, and Opportunity kept going until 2018, way past their expiration dates. They found solid proof that Mars once had water. Then came the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter in 2005, sending back high-resolution images that helped plan future missions. In 2008, NASA's Phoenix lander confirmed water ice in Martian soil. By 2012, things were getting even more serious. The Curiosity rover landed in Gale Crater, looking for signs of past life. It discovered that Mars once had conditions suitable for microbes. Then in 2013, NASA launched MAVEN to study Mars's atmosphere, figuring out how the planet lost most of its air. Meanwhile, India shocked the world by successfully sending its first mission, Mangal, into Mars orbit in 2014, making it the first Asian country to do so. Then came 2018, and NASA's InSight lander arrived to study Mars's interior. It measured quakes and gave scientists a peek into the planet's deep structure. By 2020, Mars exploration was at full speed. NASA's Perseverance rover landed in 2021, carrying the first helicopter, Ingenuity, which made history by flying on another planet. The United Arab Emirates launched the Hope orbiter, giving a global view of Martian weather, while China's Tianwen-1 mission landed the Zhurong rover, marking China's first successful Mars landing. With every mission to Mars, we find more than just dust and rocks. Strange stories keep appearing, making it clear that there's more going on than we've been told. Mars has always been a magnet for wild ideas, and the thought that someone might have already set foot on the red planet in total secrecy, that just makes things even more interesting. Some folks are convinced that big governments and space agencies are running a whole confidential operation up there, keeping the rest of us clueless while they play interplanetary explorers behind closed doors. Could there be a Mars colony that nobody's talking about? It sounds like science fiction, but the theories just keep piling up. One of the biggest claims revolves around something called Project Red Sun. According to this theory, after Apollo 17 wrapped up, the United States and the Soviet Union shook hands and launched a human mission to Mars. Supposedly, astronauts landed on Mars way back in 1971, sent there to collect data and maybe even start the first steps toward colonization. Sounds exciting, right? Except there isn't a shred of solid evidence to back it up. The official narrative says it's all just a bunch of nonsense, but that doesn't stop people from wondering what really happened behind the scenes. And then there's Jackie, a woman who claimed to have worked at NASA and dropped a bombshell in the late 1970s. According to her, she saw something she was never supposed to see, a live video feed from Mars showing two human figures in suits casually walking around near the Viking lander. If her story was true, it would completely rewrite everything we know about Mars exploration. But surprise, surprise, NASA quickly dismissed it, and no solid proof ever surfaced. Just another attention seeker? Or was she silenced before she could say more? The influence of movies on public perception can't be ignored either. Take Capricorn 1, a film from 1978 that showed a Mars mission being faked by the government. Just a thrilling Hollywood story? Maybe. But for some, it was a little too close to reality. If they could fake a landing in the movie, who's to say they didn't fake other space missions too? The timing of the film, just a few years after the supposed confidential missions, makes it even more suspicious. A little too much coincidence for some people's taste. Another bizarre twist came from a British TV show in 1977 called Alternative 3. It was presented as a serious documentary, claiming that powerful figures were planning to escape Earth's problems by moving an elite group to Mars. It turned out to be an elaborate April Fool's prank, but not everyone took it as a joke. To this day, some believe it was a hidden truth wrapped in fiction, a way to leak classified information without getting caught. And then, of course, there's Richard C. Hoagland, a guy famous for saying NASA is covering up proof of ancient civilizations on Mars. His biggest argument? The face on Mars, a rock formation that looked eerily like a human face in early photos. Later, when better images came out, it was clear that it was just another rocky hill, but that hasn't stopped believers from clinging to the idea that NASA is hiding something. If ancient ruins were found on Mars, what would that mean for human history? Would it prove we're not alone, or worse, that someone was here before us? It's not just theories about the past. People are convinced that things are happening on Mars right now. NASA's Mars rovers have sent back strange images that make people question everything. One of the most famous pictures taken by the Curiosity rover shows what looks like a doorway carved into a rock. A natural formation, scientists say, but skeptics argue that it's a little too perfect to be random. Could it be a passage leading somewhere deeper underground? A base, perhaps? It's the kind of thing that keeps imaginations running wild. Then there's Robert David Steele, a former CIA officer who went all out with his claims. He insisted that NASA has been shipping people to Mars for decades, but not in a way anyone would expect. According to him, children were being taken from Earth and raised as slaves in a confidential Martian colony. That's right, actual human trafficking, but on a whole different planet. NASA didn't waste any time shutting that theory down, calling it beyond ridiculous. But if Steele was lying, what did he have to gain by saying something so extreme? And let's not forget Mars One. Back in 2012, this ambitious project announced plans to establish a permanent human settlement on Mars with a one-way mission. At first, it sounded like humanity's next big leap. But as time passed, cracks started to show. Funding issues, unrealistic timelines, and poor planning turned the whole thing into a joke. Some even accused the organizers of running a scam, tricking people into donating money for a mission that was never going to happen. When the project finally collapsed, it only added fuel to the fire. Was it really just bad management, or was there a hidden agenda from the start? It's easy to dismiss all these theories as wild fantasies. But let's be honest, there's always a reason why people believe in conspiracies. When information is controlled, when official explanations feel a little too neat and tidy, doubts start creeping in. The history of space exploration is filled with classified projects, missing documents, and missions that had details conveniently scrubbed from public records. If governments have hidden so much in the past, why should anyone believe they're being completely honest now? Mars has been the target of human curiosity for centuries, and that curiosity isn't going away anytime soon. The idea of undisclosed missions, hidden colonies, and ancient ruins is just too powerful to ignore. Whether any of these theories hold real weight or not, one thing is certain: there's a lot we still don't know about Mars. The real question is, will we ever get the full truth? Or will it always be kept just out of reach, leaving us to wonder what's really happening on the red planet? People talk about hidden missions, but scientists are focused on something else, figuring out if Mars once had life and if anything could still be there now. For decades, scientists have been obsessed with Mars, hoping to find even the slightest hint that life once existed, or maybe still does. Every rock, every dust sample, and every chemical trace has been examined under microscopes, only to lead to more arguments than answers. Take that famous Martian meteorite ALH 8401, for example. Back in 1996, researchers got all excited, claiming they had found tiny, bacteria-like shapes fossilized inside. But of course, not everyone was convinced. Skeptics quickly pointed out that these microscopic shapes could just as easily be natural formations, not remnants of ancient aliens. The Viking landers, way back in 1976, tried to put the question to rest. Their experiments produced one result that seemed to hint at life. Radioactive gas was released when Martian soil was mixed with nutrients. That should have meant something was alive and eating, right? But no, further tests failed to find any organic material, leaving scientists frustrated. Some believed the positive results were just chemical reactions, not life signs. Others argued that our testing methods were flawed from the start. Then there's NASA's Perseverance rover, rolling through Jezero crater, scraping up bits of Mars in 2022. It found organic molecules, which sounds promising, right? These molecules are the building blocks of life, after all. But here's the catch. Organic molecules can form without life being involved. So once again, we're left with a big, fat maybe. Not exactly the breakthrough everyone hoped for. Another discovery that stirred up excitement was a rock in Jezero crater called Chang'e Falls. Scientists found organic compounds in it, along with structures that could suggest past life. But just like before, natural geological processes could explain these features too. Since no one wants to jump to conclusions, researchers say they need to bring these samples back to Earth for better analysis. The problem? Getting anything from Mars to Earth is a logistical nightmare that could take years, if not decades. And let's not forget the methane problem. Mars has been coughing up methane, which on Earth is mostly produced by living organisms. But methane can also come from geological processes, like reactions between water and rock. Even weirder, methane levels on Mars seem to rise and fall with the seasons. Could this be a sign of microbes deep underground, or is it just another geological trick? Scientists still don't have an answer. Then there's the strange rock formations. Some structures on Mars look eerily similar to stromatolites, which on Earth are made by bacteria. Could these be the remains of ancient Martian life, or are they just weirdly shaped rocks? Without more proof, all we have are theories and more endless debates. Another twist came when scientists found perchlorates in the Martian soil. These compounds are known to destroy organic molecules when heated. That means past experiments, like the Viking landers, might have actually burned away any signs of life before they could be detected. Talk about frustrating. Now, scientists have to rethink how they search for life without accidentally erasing the evidence. Every time we get close to an answer, Mars shows us something new, making it clear that the full story is still out of reach. Then there's magnetite crystals found in Martian meteorites. Some of these look just like the ones bacteria make on Earth. That got some scientists buzzing with excitement. But of course, others were quick to remind everyone that non-living processes can create similar crystals. The debate rages on, with no clear answer in sight. Water is another huge piece of the problem. Mars once had rivers, lakes, and maybe even oceans. Today, scientists believe there's liquid water trapped beneath its icy poles. If water is still there, could something be alive underneath the ice? Some think it's possible, but without drilling deep into the ice, it's impossible to know for sure. In 2018, things got even more interesting when researchers found complex organic molecules in billion-year-old Martian rocks. These molecules are essential for life, but like everything else, they could have formed without any living organisms involved. So once again, the answer remains uncertain. Scientists also study Martian meteorites that landed on Earth. Some of these rocks contain chemical traces that could point to life. But how do we know those traces didn't get contaminated after crashing onto Earth? That's the problem. There's always another possible explanation that doesn't involve alien life. Mars also has something called recurring slope lineae, dark streaks that appear on slopes during warm seasons. Some believe these could be caused by salty water flowing just beneath the surface. If so, that's a game changer, because where there's water, there could be life. But once again, others argue that these streaks could just be caused by dry, rolling sand. Nothing is ever simple when it comes to Mars. Methane levels changing with the seasons adds another layer to the problem. On Earth, a lot of methane comes from living organisms. If something similar is happening on Mars, it could mean there's microbial life underground. But until we figure out exactly where the methane is coming from, we're left guessing. Then we have minerals like clay, found in Gale Crater by the Curiosity rover. Clay forms in water, and not just any water, but water with a neutral pH, perfect for life. This suggests that Mars had friendly conditions at some point, but did life actually take advantage of it? That's still unknown. A study in 2024 suggested that life could survive inside Martian ice, protected from deadly radiation. On Earth, Microbes live in similar icy conditions, so it's not a crazy idea. But unless we find actual microbes frozen in Mars's ice, it's just another theory. After all these discoveries, one thing is clear. Scientists keep finding hints of life, but never proof. Every test, every sample, every scan seems to leave the same frustrating question. Is Mars hiding life, or are we just seeing what we want to see? Bringing samples back to Earth might finally settle the debate, but until then, Mars will continue to taunt us with possibilities. What if the truth has been buried right in front of us all along? Has NASA really sent humans to live on Mars without anyone knowing? Or is this just another wild theory to keep us guessing? Could there be hidden bases, lost astronauts, or even a whole colony we were never told about? The truth might be closer than we think, or maybe it's already out there, waiting to be uncovered. Tell us what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.